The first mammals appear in land around 150 million years ago. The first mammals just lived in land. They didn't live in the marine ecosystems. But then around 60 million years ago, things changed, and the first marine mammals started to appear. And they were the cetaceans, or the whales that we know of today. And then the sirenids, like some of the manatees that we know of. And based on the fossil record, we know now that some of the sirenids even appeared all the way down here in Chile. But then when the cold Humboldt current that was a barrier appeared, it killed off most of the sirenids. So that's why there are not any of them here today now. But then around 15 million years ago, the first mustelids appear. The mustelids are basically most of the otters we know of today. Hello, I'm Daniel Cáceres from Peru, and I'm in Talcahuano with the Darwin 200 project doing the research on sea otters. So the first mustelids that appear were the weasel, like the beginning of the mammals. They were completely terrestrials, but over time, they started evolving to become aquatic, and that's where the otters came in. And then afterwards, around 5 million years ago, the first sea otters appeared and became mostly fully aquatic. While the freshwater otter spends less than 70% of their time in the water, the sea otters can spend more than 70% of their time in the water. And all this happened from Asia to North America. That was a route. Back then, South America was not connected to North America continent. And that was mainly because the Panama Isthmus was not created yet. And it was not until 3 million years ago, where the Panama Isthmus completely closed, then the sea otters were able to migrate down and evolve into the smallest sea otter that we currently know, which is the smallest marine mammal yet inland. And that is the lontra felina, or the Chungungo, that we have been studying. The lontra felina, the Chungungo, is a marine otter that is highly adaptable. As we can see, its hind legs have webbed feet so they can swim around. They have large efficient kidneys for osmoregulation, large volumes of blood so they can have oxygen storage, and also large volumes of lungs for flotation, highly adaptive eyes for the salt water, and overall a thick bones so they can have good swimming abilities to be able to catch their food. But one of the most interesting things is that most of the marine mammals evolved with a thick layer of blubber for insulation. But that didn't happen with the marine otters. They actually have the densest fur yet because they have under hairs that interlock to trap air for insulation. The marine sea otter, or Chungungo, became a very important species in this area from Argentina to Peru throughout the many hundreds of thousands of years. They became a keystone species, which means that they became more important than other species in maintaining the health of the ecosystem they lived in. Because with their size that could go up to more than 1 meter, with their weight that can go from 3 kilograms to 5 kilograms, and with their diving abilities that could reach all the way down to 40 meters, they were able to control the populations of herbivores in the area by eating the crustaceans, some fish, and some mollusks even. And with this, helping the algae grow to safe levels. But even before human arrives, they had predators that would compete and attack them usually. And those were some of the orcas that would eventually reach close to the shore areas or to the areas where they would swimming, because the sea otters would spend around 70% of the time in the ocean. And also some juveniles used to be caught by birds. And then they had the sharks that used to love frenzying on small marine mammals that lived in the area. And that's why the sea otters adapted themselves to the rocky ecosystems where they would prefer caves that were a little bit higher than the high tide would reach. and sometimes they would use the sandy beaches to move from rocky areas to another. The first humans arrived in the Americas around 20,000 years ago, and in Chile around 15,000 years ago. The first human settlers in the area, they didn't consume most marine mammals, but it did resource the ones that were really close to the rocky areas, specifically the sea lion and the sea otter. They even used the sea lion with their hide as rafts for fishing in that area. And then afterwards, other human settlers from that area, they used to use dead whales for consumption. Back then, there were more chungungos or sea otters than humans. Then we moved to the 16th centuries when the Spaniards arrived. The Spaniards used Chile as a sailing way, so they used to see the animals for consumption and also for hide, skin, and oil, specifically from the whales and the sea lions. Then humans started settling in the terrestrial areas, creating a demand for internal meat consumption. And then afterwards, our friendly sea otter became part of a horrible scheme. They were being hunted for fur to the European countries, and that's where most of the population started to diminish. And it was not until 1782 that a Chilean Jesuit, Ignacio Molina, described to the world and gave it an official name to the sea otter, the Lontra felina, meaning the sea cat, like they called it in Chile. And it was not until the year 1950, less than a century ago, that hunting, killing sea otters was finally banned by Supreme Decree number 751. Join us for the next episode where we will see the current threats of the sea otter and where we will meet some of the main actors behind the conservation and research of them.